As we begin to look into Africa, news breaks that Somalia's president has just survived a bombing in Mogadishu. The Democratic Republic of Congo hopes for a trump card. Meanwhile, the Rwanda-backed M23 rebels have refused to attend peace talks. Burkina Faso is still responsible for a fifth of all terrorism deaths globally, says the Global Terrorism Index. An entire Zambian river died overnight after an acid spill from a China-owned mine. A United Nations helicopter was attacked in South Sudan, pulling the nation back to the brink of civil war. A humanitarian crisis of unimaginable magnitude continues to envelop Libya. The two biggest parties in South Africa's ruling coalition have been unable to compromise on a budget for the nation.
Make no mistake, we will use our position in government and in parliament to block laws and policies that seek to destroy the South African economy and wreck our citizens' livelihoods.
The deadly AIDS now threatens to create 3.4 million new orphans, with Trump cutting US aid for Africa.
3.4 million AIDS orphans additional to what we have already.
Ya mateso tu sana ya kupata dawa ya kwa mbio juu ya.
Politically, militarily, economically, or by any parameter, Africa is on the edge. And that has been the case for years, maybe even centuries. We didn't start the fire. It was always burning, since the world's been turning. In 1989, as the Cold War thawed, legendary American singer Billy Joel penned these words. The song became a hit with America's youth, and then the world relating to the sentiment of trying to fight a fire of unknown origins. Cut to 2025, an entire continent still burning.
But when you talk about the US aid, if it is cut for the next time, already 1.4 million or 1.2 million individuals put at risk. IDPs is living in both camps and host communities. This is the impact.
Name a nation, and any Africa observer will count down the top 10 issues plaguing the local population. There are 54 recognized countries in Earth's second largest continent. Of these, we will focus on just the headlines. To begin our story, we go straight to the so-called cradle of humankind. South Africa. For the first time in South Africa's 7 national elections, the ruling African National Congress was dealt a stunning blow in 2024. Nelson Mandela's party failed to get a majority, and a coalition now rules South Africa. Fast forward to 2025, and this coalition of parties, ideologically at odds with each other, cannot agree on a budget for the nation. The ANC and the controversial Democratic Alliance are fighting over a proposed value-added tax. The centrist DA wants the government to cut spending and put measures to boost economic activity, a demand very similar to the Republicans in Washington. The DA has also been accused of backing the interests of the white minority population. So now, they rule the nation with a party that fought against apartheid. Dr. Congo and Rwanda. M23 rebels have refused to join the peace talks in Angola. The Rwanda-backed rebels and the Congolese military have fought a bloody civil war that resulted in the stunning fall of Goma. In a swift offensive, M23 captured crucial mineral-rich regions of DRC. So what did the Congo government do? The under-pressure government has apparently reached out to the US government. What President Felix Tshisekedi wants is a minerals for security deal from the Trump government. Sound familiar? It's almost exactly what Donald Trump wants Ukraine and President Zelensky to sign. The hope of the Congo government is clear US boots on the ground to take on the clear and present danger of a complete rebel takeover. Turn the pages of history books and you will learn about Belgian Congo. Even as colonialism became a bad word, Belgium ruled Congo with an iron fist till 1960, portraying an ideal colony to the world, all the while exploiting labor and resources. South Sudan, the world's youngest nation, continues to bleed. After a brief lull, South Sudan is once again at the brink of war. On one side of the ring stands President Salva Kiir and the Dinka, and on the other is the Vice President Riek Machar and the Nuer. The ethnic groups have been historically at odds. While both share a common heritage, the fight is once again for resources, this time grazing lands, food and potable water. In 2017, the European Parliament called it a man-made crisis. It is interesting to note that undivided Sudan came under British rule by the end of the 19th century. It is an accepted fact that the dichotomy between the two Sudans began with the boost of development under the British in the north, because the south was much more complicated to manage. Zambia,
Okay.
Prior to the 18th of February, this was a vibrant, alive river. We had cormorants, we had kingfishers, there was small masengas, the fishing was good. Now everything is dead. It's just like a totally dead river. It's unbelievable. Overnight, this river died.
It is an environmental disaster, really of catastrophic consequence when we consider the fact that cyanometals has polluted a river on which millions of people depend for their livelihoods. We're also talking about wildlife and just the general disturbance which has been given, even in not just villages but actual towns.
on February 18th, a containment structure at a Chinese-owned mine collapsed. Investigators from the Engineering Institution of Zambia say some 50 million litres of waste containing concentrated acid, dissolved solids, and heavy metals flowed into Zambia's most important waterway. The horrific incident, destroying lives and livelihoods, is just an example of the lack of accountability and overreach some of the strongest global powers wield over Africa. Add to this the new government in the United States of America. As Trump looks to save American tax dollars, Africa has been left in the lurch. With aid being cut, major disease prevention programs are at risk, including Ebola, Mpox, and HIV/AIDS.
We will see a surge in this disease. We could have an additional 3.4 million AIDS orphans. 3.4 million AIDS orphans additional to what we have already. So this will cost lives. If the American government doesn't change its mind and maintain its leadership.
The United Nations remains optimistic for Africa, but even they accept things are not going great. In fact, the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa accepts that Africa's growth remains insufficient to meet sustainable development goals even almost 2 years after the COVID pandemic officially ended, as per the WHO itself.
With this democratic shift and resource control race, we need to look at possibilities of rimland theory of Spikeman and heartland theory of Mackinder getting replaced with the Arctic land water region and Africa as a future power center or region of struggle.
Some say Africa will be the next geopolitical sparring ground, but the cradle of civilization has always been a battle zone. What Africa has, it has had forever: resources and labor. What plagues Africa has also plagued Africa almost just as long as civilization has existed. Wars, ethnic tensions, language troubles, colonizers, disease, corruption, terror, and every other horror one can imagine. Despite the obvious challenges, the Under-Secretary General and Executive Secretary of the UNECA believes the future is Africa's to define. Stuck between the global north and south, has the continent been reduced to an opportunity